Today, we are going to discuss about anger management in the Buddhist context. Now, anger is a core human emotion, just like happiness, unhappiness, sadness, anxiety. It's a normal human emotion. And everyone has the tendency to get angry sometime or other in some context, either in the context of one's family or work and employment, or in the context of one's social situations. Now, why do we get angry? We get angry when we are disappointed, when we are annoyed, when we lose something, when things do not happen the way that we would like them to happen, and even when there is some injustice in the society. Now, feeling angry is not the problem. The problem is how one reacts to anger. What happens is, in most situations, when someone gets angry, their normal, rational thinking stops working, and one may lose one's self control and react verbally or physically. An angry person can be verbally abusive, shouting, screaming, and making threats to everybody around. Or one may become physically aggressive to oneself or to objects around us, throwing things around, and even become physically aggressive to other people, causing injuries, and in some situations, even death. The anger and aggression are not the same. And whenever we get angry, it's always due to someone else or something other than ourselves. But really, when we do get angry, the object of anger is not the real reason for anger. It is how we interpret a particular situation that affects our rational thinking. Now, Buddha has described three unwholesome roots based on which all unwholesome actions, bodily actions, verbal actions, and mental actions happen. And anger, ill will, aversion is one of the three unwholesome roots, along with greed, lobha, and delusion, moha. And anger is also one of the five mental hindrances, pancha nivarana. Now, mental hindrances are mental defilements that can negatively affect our mind when we are trying to meditate. So, along with sensual desire, sloth and torpor, restlessness and remorse, and skeptical doubt, anger is also a mental hindrance. has described a group of mental defilements called latent tendencies, anusaya dhamma. Now, these latent tendencies exist at the subconscious level. They remain latent, dormant from life to life, as long as we remain in the cycle of birth and death, the samsara. And Buddha said anger, ill will, is also one of those latent tendencies. Now, anger works at 3 levels. Now, as long as we have anger as a latent tendency at our subconscious level, whenever we get sensory object through one of our 6 internal sense doors, that's the eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body, and the mind. If the external sense object is unpleasant, painful, or disagreeable to us, then this latent tendency of anger will become active. And then we become conscious that we are angry. And that level is called pariyuttana. And then we react to that anger either verbally or physically. And that gross level is called vitikkama. Now, the Buddha has also described a group of 10 mental defilements called fetters. Now, these fetters are sort of chains or shackles that bind us to the cycle of birth and death, the samsara. Now, anger and ill will is also one of the 10 fetters that binds us to the cycle of birth and death. In a discourse called Leka Sutta of the Anguttara Nikaya, which is the collection of the Buddha's numerical discourses, the Buddha described 3 types of individuals in relation to anger. There are some individuals who are like an inscription in rock. They get angry very often, and the anger stays for a long time. There are other individuals who are like a line drawn in soil. They do get angry very often, but the anger does not stay long. And there are other individuals who are like a line drawn in water. They get angry very rarely, and even when they do get angry, the anger doesn't last long. Now, in another discourse called Kodana Sutta of the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha has described 7 negative effects of getting angry. The Buddha said, one who is angry will become ugly and miserable. One will sleep poorly. One will not be successful or prosperous. And one may lose one's wealth by taking the wrong decisions in anger. One will lose one's reputation as well as one's friends and relatives. And being an unwholesome action, anger can lead to rebirth in lower planes of existence, including the hell. Now, how can one control anger? Now, the Buddhist teaching does not advise us to suppress our anger or to react in any unhealthy way. First of all, we have to accept that we are angry. There are many people who deny being angry even when they are really angry. Don't we know some people who gets angry, who goes into a rage and will shout, scream, and if you ask them, why are you angry? And they will shout at us. Who said I am angry? I am not angry. So unless one accepts that one has anger as a problem, there is no motivation to manage it. Now, fire cannot be controlled with fire. And similarly, anger cannot be controlled with anger. And patience is one of the best means of managing anger. Now, some people think that being patient is a weakness. By being patient, you let other people walk over you and to get away with whatever they have done. But patience is not a weakness. It is actually a strength, a skill, a noble quality. Now, our Lord Gautama Buddha, when he was a Buddhist aspirant, Bodhisattva, developed 10 perfections over a long period of time. And patience and tolerance was one of those 10 perfections. As a Buddhist aspirant, Buddha was subjected to enormous physical and verbal abuse by other people, but he tolerated them all. An example is Kantivadi Jataka, that is the story of one of the previous lives of the Buddha. And in one of his previous births, he was an ascetic called Kantivadi. And he was subjected to immense physical harm by the king during that time by getting the executioner to cut his nose, his ears, his hands, his legs. But ascetic Kantivadi tolerated them all, expressing loving kindness towards the king. And even after becoming Lord Gautama Buddha, the Buddha practiced patience and tolerance in several incidents that we have seen in the Buddhist literature. And in one of those situations, that is recorded in a discourse called Akkosa Sutta of the Samyutta Nikaya. That's a collection of the Buddha's connected discourses. A Brahmin called Akkosa Bharadwaja went to the Buddha in an extremely angry state and verbally abused the Buddha. But the Buddha was quiet and patient. And then the Buddha quietly asked the Brahmin whether the Brahmin gets any visitors, relatives, friends visiting his house. And the Brahmin said yes. Then the Buddha asked, when they do visit, do you prepare nice food to entertain them? And the Brahmin said yes. Then the Buddha asked, what if those visitors refuse to eat the food that you have prepared? What happens to the food? And the Brahmin said, well, if they don't accept my food, then it belongs to me and I will eat them. And the Buddha said, similarly, You have brought a lot of verbal abuse to me. I am not accepting them. So they are all yours and you can take them back. And the Buddha also said, when you get angry at an angry person, you make things worse. When you don't get angry at an angry person, you win a hard battle. And if you are mindful and calm when the other person is angry, you act for the good of both. Now, very often, the angry person does not know that he or she is angry until it's too late. So cannot practice patience. If one is mindful, that can help to recognize that the anger is arising in one's mind. Mindfulness is awareness of one's experience from moment to moment in the immediate present without reacting or judging. And the Buddha has described several techniques of developing mindfulness in the Satipatthana Sutta of the Majjhima Nikaya. If one has never practiced mindfulness, it is difficult to be mindful when you are just about to get angry. So one needs to practice mindfulness meditation on a regular basis so that one can use that in situations where one is likely to get angry. Now, when one is mindful, it can also help one to develop some control over our six sense doors. That's the eye, the ear, the nose, tongue, body, and the mind. Very often what happens is we have no control over our sense doors. So we go on reacting to either pleasant or unpleasant sense objects that we receive. But if we do have some control over sense doors, then when we do get any unpleasant, painful, or disagreeable sights, sounds, smells, tastes, touches, and thoughts, we can avoid feeling anger. Now, mindfulness and sense control will help one to develop wise reflection when an unpleasant sense object is received through one of the six sense doors. We can look at it wisely, reflecting the anger as a cause and effect process, because any angry feeling arises due to causes and conditions. And when those preceding conditions change or cease, the angry feeling will also cease. So anger is a transient and impermanent feeling. So why react to it and also perform an unwholesome mental action and face negative consequences? And through wise reflection, one can also reflect on the various dangers of developing anger and also reflect on the benefits of controlling anger. Now, when one is really angry, one becomes quite hypervigilant and energized. And that is a sort of fight or flight reaction. So when we are very angry, our muscles tense up, our heart beats rapidly, we breathe rapidly, our blood pressure goes up. So in that hypervigilant, energized state, It is difficult to practice patience, mindfulness, sensory control, or wise reflection. So I suggest we practice mindfulness of in-breath and out-breath for a short time, even for a minute or two. And that can help us to become calmer and relax. Then again, one needs to have practice this breath meditation, anapanasati, on a regular basis so that we can make use of it when we are in a situation of anger. Now, if the practice of mindfulness on breathing is difficult or it has not been successful, then I suggest we try practicing walking meditation. Now, we all know that going for a walk is always helpful to clear up a tense up mind. So we go for a walk, but at a slower pace than usual, focusing on the movement of the feet and also the sensations of the feet at that time. And walking can help the mind and the body to become calmer. And when the mind and the body are calmer, then we can try the techniques we have already described. In a discourse called Agata Pativinaya Sutta of the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha has described 5 ways of getting rid of anger towards someone else. Buddha said, maintain loving kindness towards the person, maintain compassion towards the person, maintain equanimity towards the person. Stop paying any attention to that person in your mind. And consider that that person who has done something to you to create your anger has performed a bad karma, and he or she will bear the fruits of that bad karma. And in the book called Dhammapada, which contains 423 verses that the Buddha has said in different situations, the verse 5 says, Nahi verena verani sammantida kudachanam averena cha sammanti esa dhammo sanantano. Buddha said, hatred is indeed never appeased by hatred. Hatred is only appeased by loving kindness. This is an eternal law. So, the best antidote to overcome anger is to practice loving kindness or metta. And we can practice loving kindness as the loving kindness meditation or metta bhavana. And the metta bhavana is also a meritorious act that can lead us to a good rebirth. And the metta bhavana can be practiced anywhere in any posture. So when we do practice metta bhavana, we are advised first to send loving kindness to ourselves and then spread to others, including those who caused our anger. Now, during loving kindness meditation, we can begin by reciting verses like this, either verbally or mentally, to spread loving kindness to oneself. May I be free from enmity. May I be free from ill will. May I be free from suffering. May I be happy. Or one could say, may I be safe. May I be well. May I be happy. May I be peaceful. And then when we spread loving kindness to others, we can use these verses. May you be free from enmity. May you be free from ill will. May you be free from suffering. May you be happy. Or we could say, may you be safe. May you be well. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. And when we do practice loving kindness meditation or metta bhavana, the Buddha has said in a discourse called Mettani Samsa Sutta of the Anguttara Nikaya that there are 11 other benefits of the practice of metta bhavana. One sleeps happily and one wakes up happily. One sees no bad dreams. One is dear to humans and non-humans. One is protected by deities. And things like fire, poison, and weapons cannot harm one. When one meditates, one's mind concentrates easily. One's appearance becomes serene. And when one dies with an unconfused mind. And if one has not gained enlightenment during this life, following death, one is likely to be reborn in one of the Brahma worlds. So, when we want to address our anger and to manage it, first we have to accept that you're angry, try to be patient, practice mindfulness, develop some control over the sense doors, practice wise reflection, practice breath meditation, try walking meditation, and practice loving kindness. I am not suggesting that everyone has to practice all the techniques, but the first one is essential, that one has to accept that one is angry. And then if one practices a few other techniques, one will find that one or two of those techniques will work for one. And then one can continue with those techniques only. Thank you very much.